Click track is on. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Holy Moly podcast, presented by Holy Moly Records. And let me just say, holy moly, we're really doing this. This is my loyal partner, William Billy Ayers here. Billy, introduce yourself.
What up? I'm Billy. I work at Holy Moly Records.
Yeah, you do. And I do as well. I just wanted to go ahead and start this off and say thank you for watching.
Bugs out here, bro.
What?
There's a lot of dang bugs.
Yeah, there's a lot of bugs out here. We're sitting in the grass outside, and it's pretty muggy. But we're going to go ahead and kick off, and I'm going to talk about Holy Moly Records as a whole and what we plan to do with it, because that's something we've yet to put words to. I just wanted to say, to start off, we call Holy Moly Records a record label, but really it isn't that, and it's more of a collective. We're not Brockhampton. We're not Odd Future. We are Holy Moly Records, and really what we want to do is we want to just support independent artists like ourselves, and we want to talk about music, share it, and simply enjoy it, and just cultivate a culture of just enjoying and appreciating music and having an opinion about it. So that doesn't necessarily always mean giving good reviews. That can just mean having a discussion about it. And that's kind of what we want to do more of today, is just talk about music. I know if you have been keeping up with Holy Moly, we've reviewed some records in the past week or two. We've reviewed with our friend Stefan, who isn't currently present because he couldn't make it. But our friend Stefan, who also works at Holy Moly in the communications department, he's a very attractive young man. I think there's some sort of lineage between Billy and Stefan. Is that true? Are you related to Stefan?
Kind of. Stefan is like my second cousin.
Your second cousin?
Yeah. We're not really close. I met him at a family reunion, and I heard he was really into like album reviewing and was really passionate about music and the history of music and doing all that kind of stuff. And I said, hey, I work with a group that is doing that and trying to put artists out there and also trying to promote like other people's music and just promote good music. And he wanted to work with us, so...
Yeah, I mean, he can be tough to work with sometimes. I mean, Billy's a lot easier to work with. Yeah, and we might allow Billy to do some of Stefan's job in the near future when Stefan's not available. Yeah. But the fans seem to appreciate Stefan. I mean, if you don't, you can let us know. But moving along, we just want to like nurture a community of like informative yet entertaining content, and just like surround the whole... I don't know. We're trying to get a grip on music and get a grip on the things that we appreciate and try to deliver it in a way that's like, hey, we appreciate this. You don't have to appreciate it. Just tell us what you think. Like, let's just talk about this. Let's pick this up and mull it over and just like see what's going on in our scene right now. And all the while, we're going to try and give an inside look into our own personal creative projects, because like I'm an artist. Billy's an artist. Our friend Joseph, who is my roommate, is an artist, and that we have a lot of artist friends that are around, and we want to give an inside look into what it's like to be in this industry and be in this scene, because it's not always easy. And so that's what we plan to do with this. And we just wanted to put some words to that before we go into this conversation. So what we plan to do with this podcast is really go back and look at a more serious way at some of the stuff that we have been reviewing, or that Stefan's been reviewing, because at times we've heard that the way that Stefan reviews things is really distracting from the actual content of the song review. And so while that is humorous, we think, and it's often entertaining, we do want to actually talk about the music and we care about it. And so Billy does a lot of Stefan's dirty work when it comes to the reviews, and so we figured that I would let Stefan said it was okay if we let Billy talk about it as well, and he wasn't offended by that. So what did you have to say about, can you put a little more wordage to the Tiny Moving Parts record and what you thought about that?
Yeah. I really enjoyed the record. I think it might be my favorite project from them so far.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
As Stefan said, I liked how with Pleasant Livings, one of their earlier albums, they had this really hard math rocky, just really heavy sound,
Yeah.
lots of screaming,
Yeah.
lots of just open the pit craziness.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's what kind of drew everybody to Tiny Moving Parts in the first place, because you could have you don't really hear much of like clean guitar playing with all the tapping and all the sweep picking and all the math rocky type riffs with a heavier sounding song. And I think people were kind of drawn to Tiny Moving Parts through that album, and then they came out with the album Swell. Swell, I believe that's correct.
Yeah, something like I think that's something like that.
And then, excuse me if I'm wrong, but it was more poppy, and it was more kind of in the direction of not techno, but almost like just beat influence, some like sampled drums and different pads and all that in there. So with this new record, they really took the strengths of both records and combined it to make this hard sounding, almost like math pop record, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
I would agree with that.
It has songs that are consumable for people that aren't really into that scene of like screaming music and craziness, but
that scene of yeah, like
but
just
it's still,
as a scene, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still it still goes it's still consumable for people who like the poppier sounding stuff and like all the sampled sounding stuff like that. And that's, I kind of knew it from the start of the album. It would kind of be like that, where we hear like
more easily received by like a less cult following.
Yeah, like we hear well, and they promoted the album really well too, because they did like on Instagram they had like the Vertebrae riff challenge or something, and it was like play the Vertebrae riff, and they had all these ways they promoted the album that were very consumable for the audience to like get into the record and be a part of the record before it even came out, because Vertebrae was a single and Bloody Nose was a single, and they were already like promoting those really heavily, and the fans already liked that. So when they came out with the other stuff, it was like, wow, we already feel connected to this record before it even came out.
Exactly. It was like icing on the cake. I think for me personally, I am a fan of Tiny Moving Parts, but I am a fan of the more like part of Tiny Moving Parts, as Billy would have said. And I think that with this record, you know, for me personally, I like when an artist is more self-produced and like grungy sounding. And so whenever I saw that this album, like I guess saw, like the album cover definitely was like shinier, and like that gave off an image of like, okay, this album is going to sound more poppy. And then of course when I listened to it, like that was representative. Like they knocked that out of the park, the pairing of the album art and the music itself. It was a more poppy album, but like you have these more screamy times too. And so you're tying together these two groups, kind of like what you were saying. I don't want to just say the same thing twice, but you're tying together these two groups of like, okay, some people liked whenever we were more screamy and more grungy, and some people liked whenever we like pulled back a little bit. And so they combine that well. They also use elements of like programmed drums on this album that I really liked. They used a lot of storytelling elements. Polar Bear, I think, is that one song. I liked that song a lot. And then, I don't know, I forget the name of the other song that had the program drums on it. If you can't tell, I'm not the hugest Tiny Moving Parts fan. I don't know if Billy is either.
Biggest.
Yeah, but it's it's just we're trying to stay relevant, and that's something that's come out recently, and Joseph was listening to it, and I thought it would be cool to talk about because it's really interesting. It's math rock with elements of programmed drums, but also elements of, like, I think pop punk with the way that the vocals are screamed and stuff like that. And it's just a really interesting record, and if you haven't checked it out, I do recommend that you do go and give that a listen. So moving into our next point, well, I want to say this too. I think that, like, it was cool to see them do that challenge with the riff challenge, like what you were talking about. And, like, as an artist, it was really cool for me to see, like, okay, fan involvement. This really drove involvement to listening to the album just through releasing one song and saying, like, hey, do your own solo over this, and, like, making it really accessible. That was a really great idea. And it made me think about how I could better, like, be in touch with people that listen to my music and do stuff like that. I think we could probably both think about that and how it could help us in the future. So moving into our next review overlook type deal, we saw Stefan review Taylor Swift Lover, right? And so he didn't like it that much. He had a few high points to talk about. But can you put more wordage to the conversation that you had with Stefan about the Taylor Swift Lover record?
Well, me and Stefan, I feel like kind of differed in opinion on the Lover record.
Really?
I feel like Stefan got bored with it very easy, as he was telling me, and you hear him talk about in the review how this sounds like just every pop record, and Taylor Swift is continuing with her, like, themes of boyfriends and all this, and I agree to that. And I also feel like it does sound like every pop record to an extent, but there are a few high points on it. I would say when Reputation came out, which was the record before this, it was kind of a new sound for Taylor Swift, where it was very, like, trap based, almost very, like, EDM based.
Sure.
And she had features like Future and stuff on the record.
Exactly. Yeah.
That
totally,
was,
like, that like, honestly, it kept me from wanting to listen to the record because I was like, you just went way too far from what you usually do.
And I remember when Taylor Swift first made that jump from a country artist to, like, a pop artist, people were kind of skeptical of, will she be able to, like, make it or be able to do this and succeed?
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's done a very good job of that. I just think with this new record, she's kind of losing sight of, like, the way she adapts and progresses as an artist, and she just kind of got stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, I felt like this record, I mean, from what I've heard of it, I'm not going to pretend I've listened to the whole thing. And, you know, that's what Stefan is for. That's why he's a part of our team. But from what I heard of it, it was just whiny, you know, and I can't take whiny. Like, I like whiny when it's, like, pop punk music. But when it's just, like kind of like what you were, or what we were talking about, just when someone talks about their boyfriend and, like, or I don't know. I guess that's what all music is about. So this isn't really a great point, but just the delivery was just kind of off for me. I didn't really appreciate it.
Well, I think she had good components about it, like the first track, that I Forgot That You Existed.
Sure.
Really started the album very strong and came in really just popping, and she had a little section where the chords just kind of melted it down, and then it went right back into the just snappy pop thing, and that really drug my attention into the album. And I think Stefan had the same idea. Like, when he first listened to it, he said in the review, he said, the first track, I loved it. I thought this was going to be a good album, but then it quickly bored him.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way you can enjoy this record is if you listen in-depthly to the lyrics, because she does have some good writing on. And I'm not sure, she used to write all her own stuff. I'm not sure if she still is her
I would assume so. I mean,
songwriter.
she really prides herself in that. So I would definitely assume that she's still writing all of her own music.
So we have, like, Paper Rings is very good lyrically
Yes.
in songs like Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince, I believe that's the
Mhm.
name. It's really good lyrically.
Yeah.
And it's also consumable for like her audience is like high school girls, like high school kids, and the lyrics are like relatable to people like that, where it's like, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend, or it talks about like the marching bands and like the Friday Night Lights or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's like a thing that's like
super
super
relatable. Hits
relatable.
well in a lot of groups.
I thought some of the production, I'm not sure who her primary producer was, or if she just like got production from everywhere, but I thought some of it was pretty good. It's one of the songs, I think it was Death by a Thousand Cuts, was talking, it had like this cool harp thing, and that was very different than something I've heard her do before.
Yeah.
And she had
Sure.
some cool like guitar rhythmic things going on. But I think overall the production on the record was just very bland pop, like.
Well, it's the problem is like it's not bland. Like I wouldn't say it's like maybe that's your opinion, and like that's why we get to have this conversation and it's fun. But like I wouldn't say it's bland as much as it is, it's just not different from what we've been hearing recently on the radio and stuff like that. And I don't know what Taylor's going for. I can't try to pretend that I'm in her head. But I feel like if she was going for acceptance from a mass like grouping, this record is like, I mean, if you go look at charts right now, like people are listening to the record.
Yeah.
It might not be doing as well as it could be
she
doing.
Promotes it like crazy.
Yeah, like
have you seen the Amazon?
Yes, it's insane.
boxes?
It's insane. Like I remember before the album came out, I was like, how?
Ever you walk into like every Walgreens or CVS or some drugstore and it's like Stream Lover now.
Exactly. It's like
It's like crazy.
It's
if,
insane.
If you order a package on Amazon, the box like has her face on it.
Exactly. And I think it's overdone. I'll go back to the new Chance the Rapper project. It's like if your art is good, people are going to share it. You have this thing where it's like word of mouth advertisement. I've always been the biggest advocate of word of mouth advertisement. We're in our first year here at Belmont. Like we're in like music. I'm in music business class, and I have a teacher telling me about how much of an idiot I am when it comes to like promoting and how my songs suck and stuff like that. Like he's not telling me that straight up. He's just saying like as a whole, all of the students here, like a lot of us just aren't as good at stuff as how we think we might be, and like but personally, like I believe if your record is good, then you can basically just make your record, have your fans, and especially if you're someone like Taylor Swift. Like I can't say this about anyone else in particular because some people really need that promo. But when you put out an album and you've been promoting it like crazy, like she has, and then it's just kind of good but not terrific, it's just a huge letdown.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's why I wanted to bring Chance the Rapper Big Day back into this. Like, people got so excited about that record, and it wasn't that bad. Like, I'm not going to say it was a bad record, but it wasn't what everyone had said it was. Like, Chance said that this was supposed to be... Chance said, he was like, this is my album. Like, this is my, like, breakout album, right? And it honestly, in my opinion, sounded more like a mixtape than any of his last projects. Like, personally, I thought Coloring Book sounded like more of an album than The Big Day in terms of the way the album was laid out, in terms of the quality of the verses and the quality of just the content and the storytelling. Like, it just didn't hit like an album, And, like, going back to Taylor Swift now, staying on track here, she promoted this album like literally like I've never seen any album promoted before. Like the Amazon box thing, insane. Just like all over my feed with ads and stuff like that, and just a lot like you were saying, like pharmacies, stuff like that. Just it's everywhere. Well, and then it's kind of like you don't want to see it anymore. You're just like, okay, this album's out now. Like I might listen to it, and then it was okay. Like people weren't crazy about it.
I feel like part of that was because she released that single with Brendan Urie.
Yes.
And everybody hated on it and nobody liked it, so I feel like she had to kind of, or she wanted to over promote the album just because maybe so people would get their attention off that, but also so people thought like better things were coming. And I do think the album as a whole was better than that song.
Sure.
Definitely, because that song is yucky. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think over promotion is kind of a letdown when you've been waiting 2 years. It's been 2 years since Reputation.
Has it really?
Yeah, and we've been waiting for it, and it just kind of was.
It's all right.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I'm not a music business major. I'm not a song promoter. So we're talking about the album right now. We're giving her exactly what she wants, And I've always been the biggest advocate of like any promotion is good promotion, and like people talking about your music is going to get more people to listen to it. Like because of someone watching this review and not really knowing their opinion on the album, they will probably go listen to it. And like, sure, that's not what we're here to do. Like we're not here to like promote the Taylor Swift album. We're here to just talk about it. But I mean, I don't know. I think that it's great that she's achieving something in some sense. Like maybe if the album wasn't good, like good for Taylor for doing what she wants to do. And I've always been the biggest advocate too of like really making sure that an artist stays true to themselves. And like I think that's what she's really trying to do is like she sees herself not stuck in a box anymore. Like she recently came off of Big Machine Records, which is like a country record label, and I've had a conversation about this with someone else recently. And people say that she might have felt limited with what she could do musically due to her record label because she was on a record label with a bunch of other country artists. And that does. I feel like the osmosis of just like being, on that label with those people. And there was conversations about how she wasn't allowed to do everything she wanted to do on records or how she felt pressured. And now I feel like all of that pressure is coming off because she recently came off of that label. And so a lot of Reputation, I felt like was her saying like, just being angry and being like, I can't do what I want. And now it's like 2 years later, she's just kind of still like, I can do what I want, but like, I'm still in this season of like figuring out what it is.
Well, and I think Stefan kind of touched on this, but she really wants to please her fans, and I think this record kind of shows she doesn't really know what she wants to do, because she like he talked about how she had the single Me, and she had a part in it where the fans like heavily criticized it, and when she did the re-release for the album and it was on the album, she took that part out completely. And I did agree with Stefan. It was if she felt the need to put that in there in the first place, then she should do that, because that obviously meant something to her artistically, for her to put that in there, and then she's just gonna flake on it just because some people didn't like it. I just think that's kind of shallow. It's like if I were releasing a song, and I had a line in there that was, some people were like, I don't like this line. I don't like this line. I wouldn't change the lyrics just because people didn't like the line, because I feel like artists, especially to the caliber of Taylor Swift, have planned out what they want to do and planned out how they're a writer, and every line means something to them, and they put everything in a song meticulously, like the way they want it. So I just felt like stuff like that, and just the way the album felt kind of half-baked just made it seem like she doesn't really know what she wants to do, and this is just kind of a stepping stone of her like trying to figure it out, and that's okay, because a lot of artists have albums like that.
Yeah, I think it's really cool what you're saying about like being true to yourself. I think this is like not meant in any sort of irony, but I just thought about it. This is the first thing I thought of. Kanye West, great example of someone who, relentlessly is just giving you exactly what he thinks, and he doesn't care, and like that's a lot of the reason why we've seen Kanye be successful. And Taylor, she is doing that in a similar sense, but like you don't ever see Kanye West say really controversial lyrics and then release a secondary edit of the song where there's not controversial lyrics.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna stand by that junk and like really just like not, and he's not gonna crazy promote it too. It's like he has this aura of like, I'm Kanye West. Like people care about me and they're gonna listen to this, and they can create as much hype behind it as they want to, and they do. Like people create hype behind a Kanye West song. Like when he did Poopity Scoop, people were like, this is insane. Like this is the stupidest thing ever. But everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, because he does what he wants, and I feel
exactly.
like, well, that's the type of attitude Taylor should have had, where it's like,
exactly.
Taylor Swift is the biggest artist in the world right now.
Yeah.
And she could do whatever she
Maybe,
wants.
I don't know.
And
I don't know
just
numbers wise, but
yeah. But I just feel like she could get away with whatever she wanted to.
sure.
She's just does stuff like that because she wants the fans to enjoy her.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of artists get into the thing where it's like it's just not about the check.
Sure.
It's about your artistic integrity and
right.
what
Which
you
is what we like
do.
to see as like as consumers. We like to see artistic integrity, but
Yeah.
like it's just not all about that when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And that's we're gonna have to cut a little bit short here because the camera's about to die. But yeah, as a whole, these are two albums that we wanted to talk about and enjoyed. If you have an album that you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know in the comments on Instagram at Holy Moly Records or on the comments section of this video. Other than that, thank you for watching, and we hope to go into more depth with some more music next week. And we hope you enjoyed this week's podcast.